Transparency isn't just a goal in itself, it's a way to make the government work better. How complex of a task is that for you? It's a fascinating challenge. Government decisions aren't always as bad as they might seem in the media, as they're often made out to be. Those who applied and made it through weren't just chasing a ministerial position. You really think so? I get the feeling that for many, that's exactly the goal. It's a great, ambitious goal, a profound mission, and those who share this mission are working with us today. Maxim Spotkay is the head of the Senate Office of the Parliament, a position he took on in January 2023 at just 31 years old. Before this role, he worked in the presidential administration and was previously involved in a political party. He studied in Omsk, where he not only edited a Kazakh-language newspaper but also taught Kazakh to Russian students. He's a member of the Assembly of the People of Kazakhstan and even led its national youth movement. Maxim, good afternoon. First, let's be upfront with our viewers. We're catching you on your lunch break because, that's right, the Senate office has a pretty demanding schedule, so we really appreciate you making time for us. Of course, it's been a busy morning. We've got a big plenary session tomorrow. We hold them every Thursday, and on top of that, this week is packed with major parliamentary hearings, so there's a lot of preparation going on. Well, today we're not just going to talk about how the Senate works, we also want to dive into your story because, let's be honest, your career path is far from typical. Sounds great. Maxim, this is really interesting. Most people only watch the plenary sessions, which are broadcast live, but what else happens behind the scenes? What do senators and the Senate staff actually do outside of those meetings?
Занимается обеспечением деятельности депутатского корпуса. Простыми словами говоря, мы помогаем депутатам в реализации их конституционных полномочий.
The main role of the Senate staff is to support the work of the senators.
Это зал заседаний комитетов.
Simply put, we help them carry out their constitutional and legislative duties.
Включаем и госорганы, мы.
Right now, we're in one of the committee meeting rooms. This is where a lot of the real work happens.
Они транслируются онлайн, как пленарное заседание.
Committees hold discussions, roundtables and meetings here, often bringing in state bodies and regional representatives.
Комитетов на мероприятия.
Unlike plenary sessions, not all committee meetings are broadcast live, especially when sensitive topics are involved.
В том, чтобы
But, ironically, this is where the most intense debates take place. The goal, however, isn't to create media buzz, it's to get real issues solved. The recommendations that come out of these meetings are then passed on to state bodies, and our senators follow up to ensure they're being implemented. But it's not just state bodies involved, right? The Senate also actively works with industry experts and even engages civil society in the lawmaking process. How difficult is that to manage? I mean, working with state bodies is straightforward, the roles are clearly defined. But what about independent professionals who have valuable insights? How do you bring them into the conversation?
Здесь вообще взаимодействие с экспертами это очень важная часть нашей работы.
That's actually a very important part of our work.
Необходимость обеспечения открытости нашей работы.
On the one hand, it's about transparency, helping people understand what the Senate really does and what issues are being tackled.
В то же время, вот то, о чем вы говорите.
But beyond that, when we come across professionals with deep expertise in a particular field, we try to involve them in discussions.
Чтобы он тоже давал какие-то рекомендации, давал.
Their insights, whether in the form of recommendations, critiques, or expert opinions, help us make better, more informed decisions.
Более качественной проработки тех решений, которые принимаются.
And how do you decide who gets to be part of the expert club?
Клуб экспертов это тоже не.
The expert club isn't some exclusive, closed-off group, if that's what you're wondering.
Невозможен, так скажем.
So it's not just a club of insiders whose voices always get heard. Exactly. It's an open platform where, even if you're not a member of the expert club, if you have an opinion directly related to the topic at hand and you're truly a professional in the field, why not? We invite such people as well.
Мы тоже таких людей приглашаем.
How do you find these experts? How do you engage with them? And most importantly, who usually takes the first step? You or the experts themselves, who believe they have something valuable to contribute? Well, for starters, we get a lot of input from the expert community itself. Some professionals reach out to us directly, offering to take part in discussions or specific projects. But in general, if you look at any given field, the key experts are already well known. We keep track of them through media and social networks, so we have a pretty clear sense of who's who. One more question. Experts don't get paid for their participation. It's purely voluntary work. How do you see the level of interest among knowledgeable people in drafting a good law or improving the situation in Kazakhstan? How strong is the sense of civic responsibility among professionals in their respective fields? In Kazakhstan, the level of civic responsibility is actually very high. It's important to say that outright. Yes, this is volunteer work. Of course, experts aren't paid for contributing their proposals, but at the same time, we've recently come to define it this way. The experts who join us and take part in various projects are a community of professionals who are willing and already actively engaged in discussions and the implementation of the reforms currently underway in Kazakhstan. It's a great ambitious goal, a profound mission, and those who share this mission in one way or another are working with us today.
Те, кто разделяет эту миссию, те, собственно говоря, с нами сегодня так или иначе взаимодействуют.
How many people are involved?
У нас есть несколько проектов.
We run several initiatives that bring experts into the conversation.
По инициативе спикера.
One of them is the Expert Club, and for the past 4 years, we've also had a volunteer program called the School of Analytics, launched by the Senate Speaker.
Это 8-недельный курс.
It's an 8-week program held at the start of the year where we invite top experts from Kazakhstan and beyond.
За рубежа. Но вот это...
But it's not just a course. The connections formed there last well beyond those 8 weeks.
Не ограничивается 8 неделями курса.
Graduates continue to work with the Senate, participate in discussions, contribute to reports and play an active role in policymaking.
В тех или иных документах, поэтому...
Each year about 60-70 people complete the program, and along with the Expert Club, we've built a strong, engaged network.
Ну, такое довольно солидное.
We call it the Taldao community or the School of Analytics.
Школа аналитики.
It's a group of like-minded professionals united by a shared goal, helping drive meaningful reforms in the country.
Вот реформы, которые сейчас реализуются.
I have to say, the level of openness in Parliament and especially in the Senate has really stood out in recent years. Just the fact that the Speaker has his own podcast where he invites fascinating guests to discuss major issues speaks volumes. And it's not just for show, there's a real debate, real diversity of opinion. Look at the recent discussion on tax reform. Everyone who had something to say got a chance to speak. And of course, plenary sessions are broadcast live. From your perspective, how has this shift toward transparency affected the Senate's work and your role as head of the Senate? Has it made things more complicated or has it actually helped? First and foremost, this push for transparency comes from the very top. It's part of the President's broader vision for reform. If you look at the changes happening in recent years, openness has been a key pillar, not just for Parliament, but across all branches of government. Let's be honest, out of all government institutions, Parliament seems to be doing the best job when it comes to transparency.
В том числе вот его идея с подкастом, это тоже важный элемент политики открытости. Есть сформирован такой...
Well, I'd like to think so.
На какие-то глубокие разъяснения.
The podcast, for instance, is a great example of that commitment to openness.
Вопросам
There's a growing demand in society for in-depth discussions and clear explanations of important issues, and that's exactly what the podcast is meant to provide. The reality is that government decisions aren't always as bad as they might seem in the media. Sometimes it's just a matter of not enough discussions or clarity around the reasoning behind them. And that's why initiatives like this podcast and other projects within the Senate, like the Expert Club and the School of Analytics, play such an important role. They help create a space for meaningful public debate and bring more professionals into the conversation. But transparency isn't just a goal in itself, it's a way to make the government work better. Different media projects have different audiences. My personal Telegram channel, for example, mainly reaches journalists covering the Senate and experts interested in legislative matters. Most of the content there focuses on explaining new laws and Senate initiatives in a straightforward way. On the other hand, the Senate's official social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, has a much broader audience, including everyday citizens who just want to stay informed. Naturally, each platform has its own style, so we adjust our approach accordingly. The way we present information on TikTok, for example, is very different from how we do it on Instagram. Do you read the comments? Comments are another important way to stay connected with the public. There is also the e-Öteniş platform, where we receive 30 to 50 messages every day. Plus, senators regularly meet with people across different regions to hear their concerns firsthand. Meeting in person takes effort, but leaving a comment online is quick and easy. Do you actually pay attention to what people write? Or is it more about just putting content out there to show that you're engaged? No, we absolutely take it into account. We monitor the feedback and try to understand how people feel about different initiatives. And what if the feedback isn't very positive? That's perfectly fine. Whether it's positive or critical, feedback is always valuable. The reason I'm asking in such detail is that this push for transparency seems to add quite a bit to the Senate office's workload. Maybe even to yours personally. Has it really made your job more demanding? I mean, officially, your responsibilities probably don't include monitoring the Senate's Telegram channel and keeping track of comments. That's true. It's not spelled out in our job descriptions, but at this stage, it's become an important part of what we do. Of course, it would be easier to work behind closed doors, make decisions internally without outside input, and then just implement them. That would be the simple way. But how effective would those decisions be? That's the real question. This year marks 30 years since the Assembly of the People of Kazakhstan was established. And I wanted to discuss it with you because you've been directly involved. You led its national youth organization, and given your background, I imagine this is something that resonates with you personally. Looking back after 3 decades, how do you see the Assembly's role today? Over the past 30 years, the Assembly has consistently fulfilled 2 key roles, which are actually outlined in the law that governs it, maintaining social harmony and strengthening national unity. And I think it has done that effectively throughout its existence. I'd love to hear more about the specific tools it uses to achieve these goals, because let's be honest, there was a time when people dismissed it as just the assembly of songs and dances. Things have changed. In recent years, the Assembly has gone through a serious transformation, Now, I won't deny that in the early days there was a strong emphasis on cultural activities, concerts, dances, music, and so on. And maybe at that time it was necessary. It was crucial to show different ethnic groups that we are, in fact, a unified community, especially considering that the assembly was created at a pivotal historical moment for our country.
На рубеже, на таком важном историческом.
Right, 1995.
95-й год, это только не так давно мы получили независимость.
Exactly, 1995.
Общественно-политический.
We had only recently gained independence, we were building new political and social institutions from the ground up, and our economy was still in its infancy.
И другая ассамблея.
So back then, those cultural initiatives probably played an essential role in fostering a sense of unity. But today, the assembly is very different. As I said, it has undergone a significant transformation in recent years. Now it's focused on concrete, results-driven initiatives. Since you asked about mechanisms, I'll give you some examples. The Assembly runs several key projects with senators elected from the Assembly actively overseeing them. One senator, for instance, is in charge of initiatives aimed at promoting the state language. Another focuses on philanthropy, but not just charity for charity's sake. It's about targeted, meaningful support for people facing real hardship. Take the recent floods, for example. Huge amounts of funds and humanitarian aid were mobilized. That's a testament to the Assembly's real ability to take action. And during COVID, whether during COVID in good times when needed or unfortunately during certain negative events.
Let's talk
about the senators appointed by the President on the Assembly's recommendation. There are 5 of them. On top of that, there's also an interparliamentary group of deputies working on these issues. What exactly do they do? You're talking about the parliamentary group One Country, One Goal. But it's not just those 5 senators. There are actually 10 of them in total. Plus 20 members of the Majlis are also part of the group. They play an active role reviewing legislation to ensure it aligns with our principles of social harmony and national unity. The senators representing the Assembly obviously don't focus solely on ethnic or inter-ethnic issues. How does their work actually function in practice? Some people assume that Assembly deputies deal exclusively with Assembly-related matters and social cohesion, but that's not the case. They're full-fledged members of permanent committees. If a deputy, for instance, is a member of the Committee on International Relations and Security, it's obvious that they work on legislation in that field. They submit parliamentary inquiries on those matters. Naturally, as part of the committee's activities, they meet with military personnel and other relevant groups. These individuals raise their concerns, and the deputy then addresses them through the appropriate mechanisms.
Если читать ваш послужной список, кажется, что там как-то вот особых сложностей-то и не было.
Looking at your career path, it seems like things have gone pretty smoothly for you.
Двигались на очень интересных позициях.
You've moved up consistently, holding some really interesting positions along the way. In a sense, you embody the meritocracy people often talk about these days.
Сейчас хочется все-таки спросить.
But I have to ask, was it really that straightforward?
Ли вы не встречали на пути?
Did you ever run into challenges, like not having the right connections? That's something people in Kazakhstan bring up a lot.
Ну, сложности с отсутствием связи.
I never felt held back by a lack of connections.
Конечно, биография, она всегда...
But a resume is just a polished document. It only lists the positions you've held, not the hard work that went into them.
За ними же, ну, стоит определенный...
Each role came with its own set of challenges, and overcoming them is what allows a person to grow, whether in public service or any other field.
На госслужбе, в любом другом деле.
Would you say that this is the most challenging position you've had so far?
Из тех, которые были до этого,
Compared to my previous roles, it's hard to say.
я хочу сказать, что
I mean, in terms of the sheer number of challenges and tough decisions you have to make on a daily basis.
что мне, ну, мне сложно, конечно, оценить там сложность работы. Но
It's difficult to measure, but one thing I can say is that I've been fortunate. Every position I've held has been genuinely interesting.
и до этого тоже занимался.
У вас
One of the responsibilities is organizing the Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, which is set to take place in Astana this fall. How complex of a task is that for you?
это нетривиальная задача.
It's a fascinating challenge. Historically, the chairman of the Senate has also served as the head of the Secretariat of the Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, which functions as the working body of the Congress. The president has instructed us to begin preparations for the 8th Congress, scheduled for September. Naturally, this is a major undertaking, both in terms of organization and substance. Maxim, in a previous interview, you mentioned that your favorite quote is, "As long as I live, I will never stop serving the Kazakh people." Do you still stand by those words, and why?
Ну, это известная фраза
Да, Букиханова.
Алихана Букихана, да. Можно много раз
That's a well-known quote from Alikhan Bukeyhanov.
приходит в этот мир, но
People often reflect on the meaning of life, why we're here. But for me, at this stage, the answer is clear. As long as you're alive, your duty is to serve your people.
не должно быть связано с
And that has nothing to do with rank, social status, or any external factors.
факторами. Полезным обществу можно быть,
You can make a difference no matter where you are, no matter what you do.
где бы ты территориально.
What matters most is doing meaningful and good deeds for the country, for the community. And that doesn't necessarily mean undertaking grand, large-scale projects.
Только как какие-то грандиозные мегапроекты, да, нужно решить.
Sometimes it's as simple as helping an elderly person cross the street or keeping public space clean.
Улицу. Не мусорить в подъезде, не знаю, или где-то на улице.
You're in your early 30s. When did you come to this realization? Was it something you understood early on, or did it only become clear after stepping into a high-ranking position in the Senate?
Ну, относительно, наверное, рано.
I'd say it happened fairly early. I've always been involved in community work. It's not something I suddenly discovered when I joined the Senate.
И понял, что вы можете.
So it wasn't the Senate that made you realize you could be useful.
Где-то могу какую-то пользу принести.
Exactly. Whether through the assembly or other organizations, I've always looked for ways to contribute. Even as a student, I was active in social projects. Public service, at its core, is about volunteerism. If your motivation is personal gain, then you're probably in the wrong field. True civic engagement is about selfless service. It's about doing your part, however small, to make your country a little better.
Эту страну чуть-чуть лучше.
А вы когда в студенчестве начинали заниматься волонтерством?
When you first got into volunteering as a student, alongside your studies and everything else, did you ever think it might open doors for you down the line, maybe even lead to a high-ranking government role?
В государственной службе, либо еще как-то?
Я когда часто говорю,
When I talk about the Presidential Youth Personnel Reserve, I always make a point of saying that it's not just a waiting list for future appointments.
резерв — это не список будущих назначений.
It's a community of people brought together by a shared commitment to public service.
Вот этой идеей.
At least I'd like to believe that those who applied and made it through weren't just chasing a ministerial position.
Они не ставят своей целью занять пост.
You really think so? I get the feeling that for many, that's exactly the goal.
Разные категории, а все равно людей есть. Мы же, у нас все-таки 20.
Sure, there are always different kinds of people.
Каждый вопрос есть, но
With a country of 20 million, you're bound to have a mix of perspectives.
общество неравнодушных
But
Казахстана.
I think the president's main objective was to cultivate a network of engaged, socially responsible Kazakh citizens who are ready to contribute to the country's development.
На конкретном этапе, конечно, дальше.
And in my view, that goal has been met, at least at this stage.
Поэтому, если
Of course, this and other initiatives will continue to grow and evolve.
в рамках своей
But if someone's only motivation is climbing the career ladder without a real sense of purpose, I doubt they'll truly succeed in the long run.
это удастся или это получится.